Welcome to the Knights Open Circuit, the IEEE UCF official podcast. I am your host, Juan Battaglia.
And I'm Julia Lampert. In today's episode, we have Ramon Jimenez. He's an accomplished engineer with nearly 7 years of work experience in field applications engineering, life cycle cost analysis, and customer relations. He currently works as an analog field application engineer at Texas Instruments.
Ramon graduated from UCF in 2016 with a degree in electrical engineering and was a member of Theta Tau. He is now back at UCF getting his MBA and is part of UCF's mentorship program. Welcome to the show, Ramon.
Hey guys, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, Ramon, just, basic. How did you start getting interested in engineering when you first started your degree?
That's a great question, and it's kind of a convoluted one, if you will. So I graduated high school in 2009, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went to community college and got my AA degree. And then while I was in community college, I actually started working for a company called Medicom. And there I was a cardiovascular technician for a couple of years. And like you mentioned, I graduated in 2016. So what is that, 7 years now? Through that journey, I'll say I started working and becoming more aligned with the engineering department there. They mainly did a lot of software side, but the ECG monitors were really cool. And I got really close with the VP of engineering at the time, Sean Marcus, great guy. And he was like, hey, you should totally try engineering. Still didn't know what I wanted to do. And at that point, I was like, I really like math. I'll give it a try. We'll see. I'll start taking all these math classes. Started being really good at math. And then the more I dug into it, the more I realized I was like, this is actually really fun and I enjoy it. Got all my prerequisites done. And then in 2014, finally transferred to UCF and then graduated 2016. But if it weren't for the experience at Medicom specifically and being connected with the engineering team and then seeing their lab and seeing the signals coming through, I probably wouldn't have been as inspired. So really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. But you would think that if you're in something like Medicomp, you'd be inspired to be a doctor. Did you never think about that?
I did. So I had the ambitions of, I just wanted to do something great. So like I came from a family that first generation college grad in the entire family lineage. So I aspired to be something greater. And while I was there, working with doctors and nurses, I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a cardiologist. This is really great. And it was going down that path, but I figured out what I liked more than helping people is helping with the technology that helps people, right? So right now I support the East Coast of the United States on the medical and grid infrastructure side. So I'm back where I started, right? I wanted to be in the medical field. And now I'm on the other side of that, actually helping the design of those systems that actually in turn help patients. So to me, it was just a larger impact that I could do by following that path.
For sure.
So what are you back at UCF for? I know you're getting your MBA, but what do you want to do with that?
Good question. So I like business. I do. In my field specifically, there's a lot of business aspects to the job. And everybody asks me that question. And I feel like I always tell them, I'm not sure fully, but I do like the sales and the marketing aspect of it. I think the information that I've learned from the classes so far have already been super helpful from the data analytics part and just from an overall organizational level. So one, I just want to inspire people, right? So whether that leads me to a management role or it leads me to a data analytics role or whatever the case is, I just want to be able to use whatever I learned in that MBA and apply it to not just help whatever organization I'm in be better, but also everybody else that I'm a part of on that team. So very political answer, but that's kind of the way I view it.
And you started off as an applications engineer and you did a rotational program. Is that right?
Yeah. Great rotation program.
And in that rotation program, did you work other jobs, or were you an applications engineer the entire rotation?
So it was twofold. So I'm a field applications engineer. So what that means is the best way to describe it is, you're a mile wide, an inch deep on the portfolio. So if you look at TI.com, you look at our products, there's a lot, right? There's amplifiers, there's logic, I mean, it's endless, right? So the rotation program was two parts. It was, well, at least when I went through it, it was two parts. It was applications and field applications. So with field applications being a mile wide, an inch deep, applications is a mile deep, an inch wide, right? So you're like literally becoming the expert on up amps or the processors or data converters, and you're actually assisting people on a more technical level, on the deeper level, on a lot of the designs. Whereas on the FAE side, I'm deep, but not as deep, right? I'll help with every single part of the system versus focusing on one specific aspect, like the data converter or another part of the signal chain design. So luckily the rotation, it was great. The TI rotation program was a lot better than I expected. Spent 6 months in Dallas and then 6 months in Boston. And then they finally deployed me to the field sales office out of Denver, Colorado. And that was a great experience. And if you guys ever get a chance to go to Denver, highly recommend it. No humidity, nature is amazing. The no humidity part is amazing. Like I'll reemphasize that again. But the applications role was really good because I was rotating through the amplifiers team, and I got a little bit of a specialization in that aspect of it for the signal chain design, and able to use that to have deeper conversations with the field customers, right? So when customers are designing, ECG signal chain path, I know what goes into that on a deeper level. So, and I believe now the rotation program is changed a little bit where it's more system focused and field focused, but overall it was a great rotation program, and it helps you get insight, like, what the other individuals in your organization are going through or what they're doing. Spent a lot of the time in the lab, benching equipment, benching devices, sorry. And have you guys ever used spice models or modeling software yet?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, all right. So I created spice models for a couple op amps. The stuff that goes into that is really intricate. So you start gaining a better appreciation for everything that goes into that stuff. So it was just good to be exposed to the team and get familiar with everybody in Dallas. And there's a lot of great colleagues and friends that I have in Dallas now every time I go.
Talking about that, like having to move, do you like miss being in Dallas? Because I know that's like the headquarters for TI, because there's like, it's like a third of a mile long, right? Like the whole building.
Yeah, you can walk it. That's a lot of people do that on a lunch break. They'll walk down the whole thing.
Yeah, I actually visited Dallas over the summer to because my friend was working at Raytheon, which is on that premises. So it's like I saw the building and it was huge. So I'm sure you made like a lot of friends there. Was it hard to like move to somewhere else during your rotation?
No, it wasn't. I think growing up, I had a lot of places. I moved around a lot when I was younger, so I was very used to it. I'm accustomed to it. So it was easy for me to just move to the next location, I guess. And I'm from Florida, so Dallas is landlocked. Anybody that's watching this, I'm not dissing Dallas, but humidity, heat, there's no water, right here we can just drive to the beach. So but yeah, no, it was pretty easy for me specifically, but I know there's a lot of individuals that I've connected with who have had a hard time doing that and don't want to move from the position, especially if they like their role in the rotation program, or they have a geographical preference. And I know when I went through my rotation program, it was very much you had a wish list, I guess is the best way to put it, like, hey, these are the 5 spots that are open, where do you want to end up? And it was still very much a gamble. So now it's been restructured where if you get hired into the rotation program, you know where you're going to end up, right? So you don't have that disconnect of like, oh, I don't want to leave, and those negative emotions that you may feel. So I was on the lucky side of everything.
Okay.
And so that's actually something that I've been thinking about a lot, is how important is the geographical location where I'm going to be working at? Is it how important is it actually? Do you think it, like, how do you view that? Because I'm gonna graduate here like in about a year and a half, right? And that's something that is on my mind. I feel like one of those the most important thing is what job you're doing, but then other than that, it's like where you're doing it. Is that something you concur with or not really?
Yes, for various aspects. One, cost of living is probably the biggest thing right now, right? Especially in 2021 with everything going so high. That's one of the aspects that I look at. The other one is the activities that are around. If you're going to be working in Iowa in the middle of nowhere, or with Lockheed in the middle of Arkansas, is that really, your personality? Do you think you're going to connect with that? Because when you start looking at everything of what makes you you, and you lose that, you're not going to have that motivational driving factor to produce your best effort. So when, my advice to you guys and to anybody watching this is think about what you want, where you might want to be. If you're a city person, like being social, but you're offered a job in the middle of Arkansas. And I say this because I was offered a job in the middle of Arkansas with another organization. And when I drove through there was nothing but hills and trees. And I can't do this. I'm a very social person. I need society nearby. And I knew I wouldn't be happy in that position, right? So and especially coming out of college, I feel like a lot of students will jump. You get one offer and you're like, oh, this is it. I got the offer right out of college. Now I just got to move to X. But I implore you guys to really think about those decisions. I think everybody should move away from home. That's my personal belief. I think everybody should completely be uncomfortable, because that's how you really grow as a person, as an individual, and one with your career. But you can literally I can make a huge list in terms of things that you need to think about before you make those decisions. But yeah, you guys are almost there, and it's the most exciting part. When you get that offer, when you get that relocation assignment, that's when you really have to start thinking. It's like, okay, can I do this? I'm back in Florida. I'm from Florida. I'm back. So there's no right or wrong path, and I'm still with TI. There's countless ways. There's multiple offices depending on the organization you join. So if you're from Florida, I don't know where you guys are from, but if there's a specific area you want to get to, likelihood is, regardless of who you join or what you're doing, you can get back. So
Was there ever a place that you just did not like being at?
I liked all of them. I would say Dallas was maybe my least favorite. And not to be bad to any TI people watching this, but again, it's just landlocked, and I didn't feel there was a lot to do there. The city was there, the traffic was like crazy with the way things expanded there. At least Boston, I had the city, I had the bay, I had everything in the Northeast where I can easily travel to. Texas, you can start driving at 8 a.m. and at the end of the night, you're still in Texas driving to the other side. So, and then Denver, it speaks for itself. Absolutely gorgeous.
I know when I visited Texas over the summer, the one big thing we did was go to the rodeo in Fort Worth. I think that's a big thing out there, is it?
Yeah, that's like a rite of passage, and those things are fun. And like I said, I liked it. It just wasn't my favorite. Would I move back? Yeah, I would. It wasn't horrible. It's just, it was at the bottom of my list. I like being near water and nature. That's just my thing.
Me too.
So it sounded like you have like Central Florida at the top, Denver, Boston, Dallas. Would you say that, or?
Yeah, no? Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. Denver maybe if there was no humidity. No, we can keep Denver second. That no humidity thing. When you get off that airport at MCO, that humidity is just. So it's a huge thing.
No, yeah, for sure. I also feel like whenever I graduate and I move out to wherever I accept a position, I just feel like I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm in this new place, new apartment or new whatever. I'm just gonna like, I'm not gonna know what to. It's like, what do you do after that? You just have like a lawn chair in your living room, like you have no furniture. There's like, you don't know anybody. You got to go to work 8 hours a day, and then you come home and you're like, well, what what's going on now? I don't know. Did you ever feel like that? Is that something that people go through?
Yeah, 1000%. The no furniture thing, lived it. You know, it's hilarious for a little bit, and then you're like, okay, I actually got to get furniture now. And then from the aspect of connecting with new individuals in Dallas, it was easy. Headquarters, tons of new college graduates. A lot of the friends that I actually had in college were either already TI employees there, or they got hired along at the same time. So it was easy to find that connection. When you're in the field sales office, there's still that camaraderie of everybody. You know, there's events going on. You know, it's just like anything. It's just like school. You make friends wherever you are in the workplace. It does get harder. Denver was probably the hardest part for me. I love my colleagues. We were all great friends. But at the same time, the position that I had, you know, essentially working from home since 2018, you don't really get out and meet people. So that was probably the hardest aspect of the Denver office for me on a personal level. But generally speaking, like again, the colleagues were great. So we still got to go out and hang out and have some fun. But meeting anybody outside of that was a little harder.
Mm-hmm. And just real quick to kind of go and circle back for a second. Could you tell everybody not only what, you know, kind of like a formal definition of what an applications engineer is and does, but also what was it that attracted you to it and is making you want to continue to do this?
Okay, cool. Great question. So there's two, well, essentially an applications engineer is what it means. It's applications, right? So you're looking at a specific device. What's the application of that device into your end system? So you're designing an ECG. You have an analog front end. What are the specifics that go into that analog front end? You know, the signal chain before that for the signal lead detection or whatever else it is that makes that application work. So think of that entire application, and you're working on that, each subsystem, each individual part in between it. And you're applying that to make that work. So in my specific area, like I mentioned previously, is I help the East Coast of the United States on the medical systems as a field application engineer. So field means I'm in the field, I'm not headquarters, right? And the application side is all of my customers' applications. So in the past, actually, I supported, you guys know the guys that make the Taser Axon. You guys have seen tasers, you know what tasers are. Yeah. I was actually the FAE for Axon. And if you know how to Google really well, you'll find a video of me being tased voluntarily because they had a day where they were just tasing people. And you know, when you're looking at these subsystems, these end equipments, or these applications in general, it's basically assisting the design and development of that entire product, right? At a subsystem level. So like I mentioned, you're looking at all various aspects, power, the signal chain, everything that goes into that to make that product work. And I like it because I get to do cool stuff like getting tased. Just joking, but realistically, I like it because it's so broad. You know, I feel like what you guys mentioned at the beginning was, you know, what we're taught to do in school is design work. I can't say I 1000% just don't like design work. I do design work on a day-to-day basis, but the interactions that I get to have with my customers and knowing that I'm providing a bigger impact in doing so means more to me, specifically for my position. You know, ironically enough, the company that I was a cardiovascular technician for, I actually support them as an FAE now, right? So here I was, you know, helping patients back in the day, and now I'm helping patients still in the design of their application of their end equipment. So it's just motivating for me, honestly, personally, to have such a broad reach, to be, you know, part of all these different subsystems and all these customers, and having calls and having these meetings, and knowing that you're helping them stay competitive and stay in the market. I think that it's what wakes me up in the morning. It's not a dull day. There's always something different. And when they're done with one design and they're designing the next design, guess what? There's something different, no matter what. You know, maybe now the battery needs to last an extra 2 hours. So what are you going to do? You know, what are you going to look in the signal chain to reduce power, or what do those chargers look like? So it's a puzzle, and that's why we go to engineering, right? We like being technical. It's a puzzle, and I like my puzzle.
I like my puzzles for sure.
So when you were in college, like at UCF studying engineering, did you realize that you didn't really want to do design work, and that's why you went into applications?
Yeah, so when I was at Lockheed, so I did CWEP for 2 years, from 2014 through 2016, and I was in a systems role, which I liked because, again, that was very high level, and it focused on the entire architecture. And that's when I kind of got the idea. It was like, you know, I like focusing on a systems level role. With applications, I can kind of do that in my specific role. I worked with a little bit on some of the design engineer stuff, and you know, I just feel like everybody has their preference, and again, I just ended up deciding it wasn't my preference. I like doing what I do now, and back then I realized I was like, you know, I would be more focused, or I would appreciate more of a systems role, or a wider view role. I say open your aperture, right? Just like, you know, a camera works, that aperture ring. I like having a broad aperture, and that's just my personal thing. I can be dangerous in multiple product lines and multiple devices versus being specialized in one, but I like being able to bring that knowledge together to create something better. So.
Mm-hmm. And also, while you were here at UCF, you were a member or a brother of Theta Tau, right?
Indeed, indeed.
I think our president is also a brother of Theta Tau right now, and just I'm not personally in it, and I assume that the majority of the people listening might not be in it or might not yet be in it. How did that affect you as a professional and as a engineer as well as a student?
Yeah, that's Will? Is Will the president of IEEE?
No, it's Alex Parody.
Okay, okay. I'm on campus time to time, so I see them, and I socialize a couple, but I mean, there's a lot of individuals and not a lot of time to know everything. But it was great in college. You know, one, from the social aspect of it, I mean, it's college, right? We're communicating, we're socializing, we're having a good time. But I really enjoyed the professional aspect of it. So I say this to everyone: the mock interview perspective that I took away from that was great. And you know, I graduated 2019. By the time I got, I mean 2009. By the time I got there was 2014. So I could say, you know, oh, I was the oldest person there, and I had all this real world experience. But the mock interviews and the, you know, the philanthropy was great. But the mock interview part for me, they would actually invite, you know, graduated brothers to come back and do real interviews. So 2 per semester, they still do 2 per semester. And I remember I walked in and I was like, hey man, I got all this experience. I'm like 25, 26, everybody's like 19. And I got wrecked. And I think that was really humbling for me to be a part of an organization that brought alumni back that are in the field working, much like, you know, the way we're talking now, to have those technical interviews, to have, and so you know what to do and whatnot. Apart from the organization too, everything that we helped set up with the drives and the again, the philanthropic stuff was it was just fun. It was fun to do the same stuff with the cohorts. You guys have the same goals. You guys can complain about the same professors. You can cry about the exams. You can do everything together, and that was a fun aspect of it. The professional development side of it was my favorite part.
Were you ever in any clubs, engineering related at UCF?
So I tried a bit. The thing was, I was working 2 jobs at the time. So I never got to do it. And then by then I was pretty much maxing out my hours at Lockheed. So I didn't have enough time to fully commit to anything else. Theta Tau was the one organization that I was a part of. There was, I attended body sessions, the Society for Hispanic Professional Engineers, and a few others, but Theta Tau was the one where I could only commit my time to one, and that's the one I chose to do. Because like I mentioned, the benefits that I got out of it really helped me go a long way.
Do you recommend people to join that? Like, for example, me and Juan, we're like neither of us are in it. So, and we're in IEEE. So we do some stuff like, I know that in a couple of my other clubs, there's mock interviews too, but they're probably not as like you probably don't get as criticized there as you would at Theta Tau, I feel like. But so would you recommend it, like, to join?
I think so. I would. Looking back at my time, it was fun. It definitely was. And I think what I took out of it, one of my best friends that I met, definitely a groomsman at my wedding, came from that organization. And that bond that we formed from the activities, every fraternity has their own rites of passage, and the rites of passage that we went through and the bonds that we formed, I think are great. I literally was just FaceTiming today with a different brother that I was in there with, talking about one, careers, and two, investments, and everything else. And I think those connections are just priceless in my opinion.
Another thing that you like briefly touched up on is that you were working two jobs at once while you were in school. Was that right?
Yeah, it was tough.
And we saw that or like from your LinkedIn, it seems like you had a job throughout your entire like college experience. Is that something that was that a choice? And also, how did that affect your academics and everything else?
It was not a choice. As I mentioned, I was a first generation college grad. So quite honestly, I just grew up poor, right? I didn't have all the support that I wish I had. But if anything, that was such a key motivating and driving factor for me to go even harder. And it did suck sometimes knowing that there was events, or there was a tailgate, or there was something going on you couldn't go to, but you had to work. But realistically, that's the adult life, right? I did that for all those years, and luckily enough, I was able to keep my grades up. Some classes, Professor Chan, have you guys taken Professor Chan?
I haven't, but I know him.
Yeah. Julia's like, yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
Very tough professor. That was when I really struggled. Great and thorough professor, though, I will say. And it did affect things, but not enough where it was very negative. I think if anything, it helped from a multitasking and learning time management skills more than anything. And then as my time progressed at UCF, I ended up just staying with Lockheed. And then my very last semester, I wasn't working at all. So it was the one semester I had where I wasn't working, and that was a true college experience. It was great because I didn't have to work except school, and that's it. It was great.
It felt good.
Yeah, it's very alleviating, because I was in your shoes. I know if you're working, you have those exams. You're dedicating like 10 hours a week per class, reading the chapter, doing the homework, understanding the theoretical concepts, and then you have to go to work. That's hard. It's really hard. There's no other better way to put it other than to say that it sucks. It really does. But you learn from it. You start learning. It's like, okay, I'm gonna focus my time on this chapter or this concept, because if I know this, then I know everything else theoretically. So I'll give myself credit from that.
Do you think that, like, because I know senior design takes up a lot of time, do you think you would have been able to even work during that semester at all?
That's a good question. So I have a really good friend, my roommate at the time, and he did work through that. And he was able to pull it off. I mean, not just pull it off, but I mean, he basically graduated close to a 4.0. So it's totally doable. I think, his time management and everything else on his level was just like boom. And I think I honestly would have struggled. It does take a lot. Those documents that we had to write, that page, or is it 120? Is it still 125 pages? Yeah, you'll get there. You'll
I
get
don't
there.
want to
But it's
know.
like,
I don't want to know either.
I hope it's not. I hope
yeah,
I
I
hope they
think
changed it.
it may have been 25 pages per member or 30 pages. And I think our report and everything ended up being 125 pages. And my experience, actually, our experience with systems engineering at Lockheed through the CWEP program, miles, like it helped us so much because we knew how to format those documents. This is all stuff they don't teach you, right? And to talk about the stuff they don't teach you in college is they don't teach you about, you know, ESR or anything else that actually goes into the circuit. It's not just, you know, R2 over R1 and that's your gain. No, there's a whole bunch of aspects that you need to learn while doing senior design. So yeah, I'm gonna say it would have been really tough. I honestly don't know. I don't think I would have taken away as much as I did from that experience, because from that I was able to learn schematic design, layout design, you know, the points that I mentioned in terms of the actual specifics you have to look into when you're looking at an op amp or a battery charger. In your classes, you guys are looking under ideal conditions, and obviously in the real world that's not how it works. Temperature affects things. You know, heat, when you're charging the IC. We blew up our battery because we didn't realize that. We just plot the IC down. We didn't realize you needed a resistor, you know, to help control thermal regulation. But yeah, senior design is fun though. I don't want to scare you guys, but it's fun.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but I know it's a bit of a menace for some people. So
Yeah.
but I also wanted to ask you, because I personally have had friends that I know that started, you know, taking classes with me, and they had to drop out because they needed to work and they were not passing their classes. And that's something that, you know, some kids are able to do it for some reason. You know, some people are able to work and take classes and be okay, and, you know, like you, be super successful. And then there's other people like my friends that end up dropping out and just going to work or finishing their degree later, or just taking like part-time or whatever it is. So is there any kind of, you know, advice or motivation that you think helped you you know, succeed when other people might not have?
You know, everybody's different. And I say this all the time. Perception is one of my most favorite words, because what I might perceive is like, hey, this is easy. I can work and I can go to school. I'll just tough it out. Somebody else might perceive as that's not possible because they have their own, you know, their own life going on. What got me through was curiosity. Is, like I said, I first generation college grad, grew up really poor. I was homeless for a part of the time. I mean, it was crazy, but that curiosity of like, what's it going to be like after this? And then what's it going to be like even now today? What's it going to be 5 years from now? What am I going to do? Right now I'm learning software because I'm curious. And I think that curiosity of saying what if really helped push me a huge part of the way. Because there were times, not that I wanted to drop out, but there was times when you really just think, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But what if, like, what if you go through it? You know what I mean? It's if I do this, what are the rewards going to be? And I'm really glad that I did. And everybody is going to have a different path. You know, I have friends from high school that went to a trade school. I have friends from high school that didn't go to college and they're still successful. Everybody's going to be successful in their own way. It just depends on if it's good for you. But to anybody watching this that's thinking, I don't know if I can do this, you know, one, listen to what your gut is telling you and what your heart's telling you more than anything. But ask yourself, what if? You know, what's going to happen if I do this? Because man, that what if took me to where I am now, and I'm really happy. And you know, if you know you're going to be happy at the end of the day, then that's perfectly fine, because your happiness, nobody can take that away from you. So my advice, just ask what if.
I like that. You kind of flipped that a little bit. You told me that, you know, the people that might have dropped out or started working, it's not that they're unsuccessful, it's just success looks different for them, maybe.
Yeah. I have a buddy that he has same situation. He owns real estate. Never went to college. doing really great right now. And we see, I mean, you see those posts, you see the memes, you see now everything is stocks and how successful you are. And I just hate that because it doesn't paint the picture of what life actually is. You're comparing yourself to where somebody else is, and you haven't even taken that first step. So I do it all the time. I talked to you about my friend earlier, and I'm like, man, I'm not where he is, but have I taken that first step? What if I do? What am I going to do after that? So yeah, I mean, you can be successful in any way. So I just implore everybody to ask, what if, and is it something you really want, or is there something else that's going to make you happier? Because you know, as an engineering, you guys know, you know, money at the end of the day isn't everything. And I feel like there's a lot of people that go to med school or law school or engineering because of the financial incentives, but you can be happier and wealthier in other ways. And that's the most important part.
Mm-hmm.
So, bringing it back to like the beginning when you talked about how you went to community college first and then transferred to UCF, was it was Eastern Florida State College, right?
Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, it's Eastern Florida State now. It was Brevard Community College back then.
Oh, okay. So how did that like change your perception on when you went to a university? Like, how did your time there change or like shape your college career in general?
A lot, actually. First of all, it's cheaper, way cheaper. I'm glad I got all my prerequisites done because it was cheaper and that worked out. But also, you know, for the most part, community college isn't much different. But I found that a lot of the professors were a lot more lenient than the UCF professors. One, and it's a lot bigger. I remember when I first stepped foot on campus at UCF, I was like, well, this is actually, and I've never been at UCF. I was in Orlando multiple times, never stepped foot on campus until I finally had a class there. And it's big. It's just more diversity. I loved it. I would still take the same path no matter what, just because the financial aspect of it. I mean, going to community college first was super helpful. But also again, those professors, I took Calc, I think I took Calc 2 locally or Calc 1 locally. And I was like, oh, this isn't too bad. And then I went to go take Calc at UCF and I was like, what is going on? Like they were like, oh, you know, do over here, oh yeah, do this and that. And over at UCF is like, no, what are you doing? This is completely wrong. So yeah, it's a definite learning curve. And there's a huge difference between the two, in my opinion. But I wouldn't change it.
Did it feel like more personalized than community college?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Smaller classes, the professors are really, I don't know, it's just it kind of just reminds me of I don't want to say high school because that's like a negative, you know, relationship, but to your point, it's more personable. It's small, they know you usually see them here and there quite often. And then at UCF, there's like classrooms of like 300 students, right? So that was huge. My first auditorium class, I was completely shocked.
Mm-hmm. And I have another question about sort of the rotational program, because you mentioned that you moved around a lot as a kid, and I also moved around a lot as a kid. I lived in a couple of different places, and it's kind of weird because when you stay at one place too long, you almost start feeling like an itch to it's time to move again. But at the same time, you like, I think, man, I really want to be one of those kids that actually keeps his friends and like stays in the same place for once, and I don't have to go and like make a whole lot of new connections. So what kind of, it seems like since you chose to do the rotational program, was it because of that moving itch, or was it because you just wanted to see a lot of different places, or what enticed you to do the rotational program to begin with?
I think it's what you said at the beginning. It's not even I think, it's I know. I like being uncomfortable. In a weird way. When I'm uncomfortable, I feel good because I know I'm being challenged. And when I was coming out of college, I had 5 offers, and I think 3 of them were local and 2 were farther away. And at the time, I was in a very committed relationship, and
That's tough.
exactly, it's tough. And there's a good reason I'm bringing this up. But to your point, that gets even harder to make a decision, right? And they're in college, you're in college, you're graduating way before them. Like it's going to be tough. At the end of the day, I chose what I believed was going to make me happy. And I knew that this specific role was going to make me, I don't want to say the most uncomfortable, but it was going to teach me the most. And at the end of the day, same thing I tell my customers that I work with now, learning their systems, that's just fuel for me. Because 5-10 years from now, that experience that I gained from doing that is invaluable. So I looked at it from an aspect of, is the ROI on this move going to be worth it when I'm looking back 5 or 10 years from now? And I made that decision, and it was hard. It was obviously a lot. All my friends stayed here. I left. I talked about Denver, how I was there by myself for the most part. Great in the winter though, because I went up to the mountains to snowboard every single weekend. But at the end of the day, like I wouldn't change it, because I am where I am now, and the skills that I have learned so far are worth it. And I don't think that anybody should ever make a decision based on anyone else or anything else in general besides you. If you think you're going to be happy and you're going to be comfortable there, then do it. And I have friends on the flip side of that. I have friends that they were like, yeah, I want to get out of here. I want to get out of Florida. I want to do this. And then ended up not liking it and not being away. And there's nothing wrong with that. Life is about learning, and life finds a way. And I ended up back where I wanted to be. Everybody ends up where they want to be, right? Mm-hmm. So if you get a chance to do a rotation program, one, I think it's great because you get to learn all the aspects of what the entire team is doing. Two, you possibly get to experience a new area, and I think that's really cool. Like, your company's paying you to go live in Boston. Wow, that's so cool. And I actually had a friend that did a rotation through, I don't know if it was Germany or Taiwan, one of the two. I think it was actually Taiwan.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. Other side of the world. Like, you don't get those experiences ever. So you start getting the itch to what you said of, you start being in that role for so long. Do you want to move? Because you start getting comfortable. And the answer is yes, but that's why I'm glad I cover everybody that I do, because it's always different. It's never the same.
Isn't that so weird though? You start feeling comfortable and it makes you want to change. Like, that's so crazy. Like, this whole time, like you be moving around and it's like, oh my God, I want to stop moving. I want to finally, like, now I have to make new friends. And then now I've been in a place for a while and I'm like, man, I've really been here a while. Like, what's going on?
It is. It's scary. Yeah, I don't, it's a good and a bad thing. I was at that position. I mean, I was in that position this year or last year, either way, being in the field role for so long. Like I mentioned, luckily my customer is such a broad design of end equipment. There's different technologies all the time, so that keeps me up. But the other aspect of that is what can I do differently? Now this past summer, I took the initiative. I'm more focused on the analog side of things. TI's portfolio is like 90% analog, right? But we do have an EP portfolio as well. So I was like, well, why don't I just learn the EP stuff and see how that helps me and how that challenges me? That was a good thing to do. I mentioned Python earlier, or scripting. That's something else that I'm learning to do now to help improve one of our processes to make them more efficient. So it's really on you too. Like, this past year has taught me that too, is, what do I want to change? What can I change so that I don't hit that point of like, oh, I'm just itching to move because I'm so used to moving. And maybe that's a psychological thing because I moved around a lot, that maybe, who knows, but I'm happy. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I have one more question. Sorry, but so you like you mentioned it, those decisions are really tough to when you got to decide to do what's really best for you. And some people decide to stay, some people decide to go, especially I think it's a big decision. It's one of the biggest decisions, I think, what you do right after college. I feel like, or I feel the pressure of that right now, so maybe it seems like the biggest decision for me. But when you did come back, because now you're back in Central Florida, does it almost feel like like when you come back, for Christmas or anything like that, and you go back to the town where you went to high school and you see like all the same people again? Did it feel like that for you, or not so much?
What you mean with respect to what?
Because you left, and then
Mhm.
you were in Central Florida for a while, and then you left. You were at UCF, and then you left to do this rotational program, and now you ended up back here. So did it feel like you're returning back to a familiar place that and you like it, if you met up with your old friends all over again, or did it feel somehow refreshed and renewed?
Kind of both in a way. And I say that because one, it was grateful to know that I actually had friends in a local area. That's a big thing. But two, life moves on the same way it moves on for you, moves on for everyone else, right? So it's great to be a part of your friends' lives again in that new chapter of their life. What else is it that they're doing? Or maybe you grow apart. Who knows? But I think for me specifically, it felt refreshing to know, okay, I have my family and friends back were in my corner. They're here for me. And on the flip side of that, there's quite a few friends that I just grew apart from. Nothing wrong with that. We still chat and have lunch time to time, but such is life. Life moves on. Um, I did enjoy visiting all the time, and that was nostalgic. And when you visit and then you go to leave, then that gets sad because you're like, oh man, I really don't want to leave. I want to come back because you're enjoying that time. But just like anything else, it just happens. I think, what's that saying? It's the lobster theory. You don't eat lobster, and then the doctor tells you you can't have lobster ever again. What's the first thing you're going to want to do? You're going to want to eat lobster, right? So it's kind of the same thing like that. Once you get back and you get settled in, it's just back to normal.
I actually I
Oops.
have one more question about the moving. So I literally lived in one house my entire life. Like I grew up in Tampa. Literally for 18 years I lived in a single house with all my friends, and then literally all my friends went to UCF, so it still kind of felt like home, I guess. Um and this coming summer I'm going to Pittsburgh, so I'm going to like for an internship, so I'm going to be like in a completely new place. Do you have any advice about how to kind of like put yourself out there, make new friends? I'm already pretty outgoing, but I feel like in a new city, like in a completely new state, like I've never been like the kind of person, I guess, comfortable moving. So do you have any advice about that?
It's going to be tough. It is. I'm not going to lie to you. It's tough. It gets easier. I would say for me, after the second or third week, it got easier. But what I specifically did was I just looked for outs, right? I went to the gym regularly. I made use of my extra time. I picked up photography. So I actually shoot photography professionally as well. I'm actually photographing a wedding this Saturday. So um, I picked up photography. I also, I'm Latin, so Latin dancing was a thing. So I would go on social media, Facebook, and see, oh, are there any events nearby? Are there any dance classes? And I took dance classes. So I just put myself out there, and I made those connections, in those social environments. And I think that would be my recommendation to you. If there's something that you really like, but I don't know, maybe you like Latin dancing, I don't know, but see if there's a class nearby, or if it's cycling, I picked up cycling too. So I found, net groups within that network of like, oh, these people like doing the same thing. I'll give it a try. There's nothing wrong with trying, right? Because if it's not for you, that's it. You have not because you ask not. It's one of the rules I live by. And that's what I say you should do. Just give something a try. If you have a hobby, try it out. Try to meet other people that like the same hobby, and it'll just get better from there.
Cool.
All right.
But good
Well,
luck.
I actually think we asked almost all of our questions. Unless Julia, do you have any other questions?
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, Ramon, do you want to shout yourself out for a minute and tell people what you're doing, where they can find you, where they can ask you questions?
Yeah, so that's a great question. You can go on my LinkedIn, right? So
Mhm.
Ramon Jimenez at Texas Instruments, if anybody wants to reach out to me. I'm sure this video probably will have my contact information down at the bottom as well. But shout out to you guys for having me and being able to talk and keeping the social. I really enjoyed that. To TI for giving me the opportunity and continue to give me the opportunity to challenge me every day. Because if not, you know, just like you said, Juan, I'd probably be bored and I'd want to change and do something else. But keeping things different is awesome. And shout out to UCF. Go Knights.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for being here and talking with us. And yeah.
Yes,
Thank you guys.